check because I just hopped in also. I came from another, this day was really like meeting day for me. So can I just see people writing on the chat quickly if they can hear me clearly? Yes? Okay, goody. So, well, I was about to say my name. I realized naka-ano pala tayo, naka-AKA. But for anyone, for everyone, clearly, as you know, I'm a BTS fan and they're like a hero to me. That's why I selected them as my icon for this session. I will be joined in this segment by another superhero. I actually had the fortune of meeting her in the previous HR conference. My CEO and myself are pretty impressed with the insight that she brought in one of the sessions that we did. I believe she goes by, if I'm not mistaken, by the AKA Wonder Woman. I assume she likes to travel, kaya may Wonder. Is that correct? Can you like say hello to our friends from HR?
Hi, good evening, HR peeps. I'm Wonder Woman Lagalag. So welcome to our
Sabi na eh.
hero universe.
I knew it. I knew the name meant something. Anyway, so what to expect in our segment? So earlier, Professor X gave us a run through of a backgrounder of how the hero framework was formed. But just to set the agenda, this is probably going to be a 30-minute run through. We will share with you, and naunahan na ako ni Professor X kanina, nagbigay na siya ng kwento around where we are. So we wanted to place us first in terms of where we are, both mindset and experiences, in terms of understanding who we are and our role as HR. And the huge part of the conversation, a lot of time will be dedicated to discussing where we should be. We're bringing it to our community for a feedback loop because the core team was a few select people who were willing to spend Wednesdays, almost 3-4 Wednesdays, an hour and a half or two to like kind of like wrestle with this idea of sino ba talaga tayo at who are we for the organization. And we wanted the community to give us feedback along this. So to frame it, we're going to talk about where we are, both mindset and experience, and then we'll go to where we should be, what we propose our HR framework should be, both in terms of mindset and experiences. All right, so let's start with the first one. If you cannot see the slide, I would like to ask you to pin yung si Metallic Wonder Woman na presentation. So if you check the list, especially for newcomers, if you check the listing of the attendees, yung other people, there is Metallic Wonder Woman presentation. Pakipin siya because that would ensure na even if I'm talking or si Wonder Woman is talking, you're still on the slide part. Yeah, reminder lang siya. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so let's start with something that Professor X mentioned earlier. I wanted to first get into the detail of who we are in terms of how we understand our role. So a lot of the people said that HR is the heart of the organization, nga HR is a calling or a vocation, which, as Professor X said earlier, resulted to unrealistic expectation from management and employees. I won't go into the detail of explaining what this is, because Professor X gave a very good story na earlier around this. I want to hop into quickly our quick poll. So we wanted to check in with you if you agree or disagree with this statement. Let's start off muna. I wanted to assess kung pare-pareho ba tayo ng understanding, at least for this community. So we are going to send a link. I believe that's how it's going to be done. We're going to send the link what allows us to do a quick poll lang. Is that how it's going to be done? I wanted to run this by the poll team.
I will chat na lang po yung code para dun sa...
So are you sending it to the chat group? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Andyan na ba siya? Matagal pa ba siya? Because we can go into the next stuff for now. Ayan, may code na siya. Where do they go and which link do they put this? Ayan. Okay. So everybody, you can click mentimeter.com and then enter the code and then answer yung question under this code. Because we wanted to see if you agree or disagree. Yon. So let's see kung meron ng sumagot. Ako nga, wait lang. Oh, I think kailangan pa nilang mag-sign up. This might take a little while. Ganito na lang, just so we can maximize our time. We will go through the succeeding slide. O yun, uy, isa pa lang yung sumagot. We'll go through all the slides muna. Tapos balikan natin tong mga Mentimeter natin. Para mabilis tayo. So, if it's okay, Wonder Woman, can we go back to the slide? We'll just keep sending the Mentimeter stuff. Tapos babalikan natin siya later. Para we don't have like, what do you call this? Dead air. Ganyan. Oo, correct. Ganun na lang So we're iterating as we go with this presentation. So we're testing a lot of different things. Okay, can we see the deck, please? Okay, there it is. Sige So just keep checking the chat later. Tapos you can do the Mentimeter as we go. Pero later na natin papakita yung result. We'll summarize all the results pagdating natin sa dulo. Okay, let's go to the next na where we are. Next slide, please. Okay. Wonder Woman, do you wanna take this on? Explaining to them where we are right now. Experience-wise, kanina mindset yun. If people think we're the heart, therefore we get abused. Now, what we wanted to do was okay, what are examples of these experiences?
Okay. So as mentioned by Professor X in our previous HeRo Universe meetups via Google Meet, HR person we are a yes person. We seldom say no to assignments na bigla-bigla na lang na ipinapasa sa atin. Kasi like, kagaya nga ng sinabi ni Professor X kanina, HR ka naman, kayang-kaya mo na yan, or ikaw na yung gumawa nito. Because they see HR as transactional people. They don't see us as a strategic partner of the organization. Hence, we as HR practitioners, we frequently experience several forms of abuse. And among these forms of abuse are overstretching employee services. Parang yun nga, as mentioned, lahat na lang ng klase ng trabaho, kahit wala na naman siya sa scope ng trabaho natin as HR, wala na siya sa ating job description, sa atin binabato. Kasi nga, we see us as transactional people. And then another is glorified messenger. We relay difficult conversations to employees that should have been done by the manager. So tayo yung tagapaghatid ng masamang balita, gaya kapag may mga ipa-fire na mga empleyado, or tayo din yung naiipit kapag nagkakaroon ng mga office politics between the management. Another is sweeper, or sa madaling sabi, tayo yung tagalinis ng kalat ng top management kasi they seldom speak to the people. So tayo yung parang nagiging middleman, at pag may gusto silang tsugiin na empleyado or whatever sa atin pinapagawa dahil nga tayo ang HR. And then lastly, we serve as personal assistant of the managers. So, yun, kagaya ng mga naging kwento ni Professor X before na may mga ibang HR practitioner na kahit yung mga personal matters o mga household errands na ni manager, sa HR pa rin yung pinapagawa. So, PA na PA lang, aliping sa gigilid lang yung dating ng HR. So, yun nga, there is a need to change this mindset para hindi na tayo subject to this kind of abuses. So, with that, yung poll po ba,
That we'll send it na lang.
later
So,
na lang.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll keep dropping the poll links here. Babalikan namin siya. So, for our production team who's in charge of the poll, paki-screenshot na lang yung mga results, or if we can access it later, we'll show it to them. Pero just all of the links to the Menti meter will be on our chat group. Before we move to the where we should be, let's do a quick feedback loop na lang with everybody. So, the core team that was formed, we had insights around where we are currently in terms of our mindset. And then we also articulated exactly the type of experiences that we have. What I wanted to ask sa community natin for like a quick sharing is if they have experienced these types of forms of abuse in, in one way or another. Because we wanted to validate kung universal ba yung experience, or was it isolated with just um, the core team. And then this notion of you thinking that we're the heart of the organization, therefore we're being stretched, is that a reality then sa inyo? So before we move dun sa ideal scenario, or if it's not the ideal scenario, it's the scenario that we want to happen, let's talk about where we are muna, and if these are realities then sa inyo. Can we get some, if you have ideas, write them down in our chat group. If not, please write naman me if you wanna speak so we can call on you. Do you have some volunteers from our audience? May gusto bang mag-share? So the question is, are these two things, the mindset and the realities, experiences that we've shared, are they real for you? Or are they also your realities? Meron po ba?
Or baka may iba po that have experienced a different type of abuse na
Mm,
hindi natin, kumbaga hindi kasama dun sa cluster na to na-mention natin. They
correct.
can
Agree.
also cite.
Do you have anyone who wanna speak? Wala. You can write them down on the chat if you want. If you're a little shy to speak. None?
Kailangan ng voluntold.
Ay, voluntold. Oh my God. Hindi ko kilala yung mga tao dito. Wala kasing ano. Ito yung drawback nito eh, Professor X.
Random
Yeah,
sampling.
I don't even
Random
know who's who,
volunteer.
diba? Random na. Sige, mag-random. Kaya napapagdadawag tayo ng random. Ayun, Jen. Jen, do you wanna unmute yourself and share your experience? And maybe you can, ano muna, kasi you're using your real name. Who's your favorite superhero? Start with that. And then tell us
Oh,
about this
sorry.
experience. That's okay.
Okay, sorry. I was not informed na may hero team. Sorry, halatang hindi nagbabasa. Yeah, wow. Okay, hero. Never thought of that.
Okay lang yun, Jen, kasi we're busy saving the world.
Correct.
Well, hindi naman I don't know if masasabi ko na favorite, but there's always a debate between, ano, is it Batman or Superman? But between the two, I'm more of a Batman person
I
because
see.
he's very human. Um, yeah. Although para naman silang okay. So, yeah. Pero wait, na-realize ko lang na my favorite is Black Panther. Uh, very, basta yun, sobrang maganda yung story niya. Anyways,
Yes, correct.
okay. So, siguro just my insights on the slide that's being presented. I agree, I do agree na these are um, forms of, well, abuse na that really does happen in the workplace. Particularly for me, what I have encountered more commonly is yung the one that you have to relay the difficult conversation that
Mm,
never seems to happen between the manager and the staff, na parang, uy, ikaw na lang kumausap, gano'n. Pero,
correct.
di ba? Pero parang in my mind, hindi naman ako yung dapat na
Mm,
I can mediate, but hindi ko, it's not a message for me to deliver. And yun nga, sometimes what happens is that certain decisions are made, which is okay lang naman. Certain decisions are made without, HR knowing it. But what happens pag nagka-problema, oh, sige HR, solve mo na yan. Mga ganong ano, mga ganong situation.
Mhm.
Ako,
Okay.
I could say, ayun yung mga personal experience ko. And I think these things happen because sometimes siguro hindi ano hindi na-empower enough yung iba to be able to do things themselves, like yung
Correct.
sa difficult conversation. Some of them kasi they tend to think, ay, ano yan, skill ni HR yan na gawin yung ganyang conversation without,
Mhm.
not knowing, not realizing na actually as a manager, it's really part of the responsibility. Of course, meron lang talaga mga abusado. Pero,
Correct.
yun. And I like to think na yung iba is, it's more of kulang sa knowledge or sa skills. That's why the tendency is, sige, pasa natin dun sa expert. Kuno expert daw tayo. Ganun. So,
Agree. Agree.
yun lang naman.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I think one of the things that I took away from what you said was that um, because they were asking us to do this idea of relaying the difficult conversation that should have been theirs, it takes us away from the most important thing that we should be doing to enable this, which is yun nga, to develop that skill in them. Like to me, as an HR practitioner, um, one of the most important thing that I need to communicate to my stakeholders is that I'm a capability builder. So as you mentioned kanina dyan, diba, the reason why some of them don't do it is because they don't have the capabilities. But because they keep asking us to do it, we're the time that we're supposed to dedicate to build their capabilities, napupunta na dun sa pagmamanage ng conversations na yon, which is not the best use of our number one expertise, number two our gifts, diba? Kasi yun nga yung that should really be the core of what a human resource is, diba? Capability building, enabling um, our stakeholders to deliver the things that they are supposed to deliver and also to grow. So that's a really good insight. Parang from here lang, from your story, we're able to kind of like flesh it out further into, okay, if not a glorified messenger, then who? What should we be? Diba? In the context of this, we should be capability builders and enablers. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next from the chat group, we also have Nami, One Piece. Nag-set ako ng timer. We're setting 5 minutes for this conversation. We have 3 minutes pa. So, Nami, do you wanna unmute yourself and talk to us about how real this experience is for you?
Hi, good evening to
Hello.
all. Hi.
Morning.
Yeah. For me, I've been as an HR for about magto 2 decades na. So, sobrang real sa akin to. From being an HR assistant up to being medyo, ano na siya, HR head. So, feeling ko, bakit parang the same pa rin yung experience ko. Parang naiba lang yung level. Like, ngayon ko nare-realize, nung dati, nung being an HR assistant, parang, yun nga, ako yung tagapaghatid ng mga medyo mahirap na mga conversations or pag-terminate. Parang na-realize ko before, parang medyo ang kinakausap ko lang is yung medyo mabababa yung level. But now, parang the same pa rin naman. Medyo naiba lang yung level. Like, mga managers na yung tiniterminate ko now. Pero parang the same pa rin. And then, even being a PA, parang ganun pa rin naman. So, parang naiba lang yung level. Like, being a PA, medyo minimal lang yung inaasikas ko with my boss. But now, parang the same pa rin naman. PA pa rin naman. Medyo nag-level up lang. So, sobrang real sa akin yung mga experiences nito. So, yun
Okay.
lang.
Thank you. Pero sobrang interesting sa akin yung insight na hindi siya nagbago ah.
Yeah, because I've been
I wanna,
in the same company for that.
yeah, well, regardless, pero parang to me,
Yeah.
that's a very important thing that we flesh out also.
Yeah.
Kasi,
Actually, na-realize ko siya na ngayon lang during this,
okay. So, di ba sabi ko kanina, coming from Jen's sharing, we should be enablers and capability builders. The second thing that we should be as HR, I think, is change makers. So, feeling ko, because it's the same thing across time for you, and then it's the same across different organization. We're missing out on an opportunity to really be change makers, which I feel is something we will be really good at as HR.
I agree.
Correct. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yan, do you want to call in our next sharer? I think we have two more people we can accommodate two more from our chat. Hello? Nawala yata si Wonder Woman.
Nakamute po ang mic.
Yeah, can
I'm
you
sorry.
call our next share? We can do two more. Sige, and then you can facilitate that next two. And then we'll move to our next slide.
Okay. Medyo marami.
Oh,
Sige,
pili ka
mamili
dyan.
tayo
Pili ka.
from the entries.
Oh.
Sige, how about si Melanie Servo? Kaya lang hindi pa siya superhero, tsaka si Joshua Bataya. So can you transform in your superhero kit? Anyway, Miss Melanie Servo, would you like to share your experience po of these abuses? Miss Melanie, are you here? Are you still there?
Oh.
Yes po. Miss Melanie Servo, would you like to share your experience po?
Might not working daw. So basahin mo na lang muna and then pick the next one.
Okay. Okay. Ang shinare po ni Miss Melanie ay experience all of these above abuses. On hindsight, my former bosses did the same, so it might have been expected of me as well as being his or her staff. Yun, tama. Okay, how about Joshua Batalya? Sir Joshua, would you like to share your insights? Mukhang malalim ang hugot ni
Correct.
Sir
I know.
Joshua.
Hello.
Guys, are able to hear?
Sir,
Sorry, I don't know.
sino mo na favorite superhero mo? Let's start with that and then you can talk to us about your sharing.
Let's go with Iron Man.
Oh.
Kasi pwede natin ma-achieve with technology. Unlike others. May powers talaga sila. Alright. But I don't know how to change. I'll find out. So, I was able to share through chat. I mentioned you na parang they are giving us all of this work, and at the end of the day, when you talk to senior managers or to the management, they still feel na it could be done by anyone, or if parang hindi siya like highly valued. They still feel na yung a sale one is much higher value than doing all of these things, which in fact keeping the organization together. So probably there's medyo konti yung appreciation sa HR because of our upbringing, right? Being in the human centered role, as if parang lagi tayong compassionate and understanding and patient. So in some regard, it backfires to us na pagdating naman sa usapang salary appraisal, or being at least being recognized, na take tayo for granted in that regard. Pero I think that's more of traditional companies. Pero still in Philippines, at least 60-70% may ganun pa rin perception sa HR. But I think with progressive companies, they now value yung human factor now in an organization. Like right now, nakita nila na pag wala yung actual infrastructure, walang face-to-face, HR is the frontliner. How do you keep these virtual teams all together? How do you address concerns of all your employees na you're not seeing? So dito talaga natetest yung pinaka-metal ng HR during this time. Pero I guess, as nasabi ko sa team ko, as shared services, this is the highest time na we will be shining. Kasi nag-drop lahat ng mga revenue, yung mga sales, yung mga forecasted na company will get. So right now, the managers or the top management are relying on the shared services or with HR to ensure that the boat still floats. Kasi wala tayong naasahan dun sa mga frontliners, let's say. So to survive this 2020, they need a highly functioning and talented HR heroes, let's say. So this is a high time for us to shine during this pandemic. Let's not waste a good pandemic.
True.
Yeah, that's
Minsan
all.
kasi sa yes. Kadalasan kasi yung mga management, devalued yung tingin nila sa HR. Kasi kagaya ng mention nyo, hindi tayo income generating. Hindi kagaya ng machinery ng sales or ng finance. Kumbaga, sila yung tinuturing na lifeblood ng isang organization. Kasi sa kanila, dahil sa kanila, pumapasok yung pera, at nagkakaroon ng profit yung organization. But hindi nila nakikita na tayong HR ang lifeline ng organization. Lalo na ngayong pandemic human capital, no, not just the HR, but the human capital, yung tao itself. Kumbaga, hindi magra-run yung operations ng isang company like ngayong pandemic kung wala yung human capital na, yun nga, kadalasan na nade-devalued or that hindi nabibigyan ng importance ng top management. Na-mention mo rin na, yun nga po, minsan yung mga activities like team building or other, yung mga kumbaga makaka-boost or makaka-motivate sana sa mga employees, hindi rin siya nabibigyan ng funds, kumbaga. Kasi hindi nila nakikita yung value ng the human capital of the organization. Kayo po, Miss Eileen, baka meron po kayong, I
Yeah.
mean, BTS.
Tinawag ko talaga ako with my name. Okay lang. I actually, it's very rare for me to see mga insights na chat dito or nabibring up sa mga session natin na yes to the end level ako. I could relate, or I could really understand where Josh was coming from in terms of the paradigm that we have when it comes to business, where there's two major pieces, profit and people, diba? Unfortunately, many more traditional companies are really in that profit paradigm as opposed to people, without understanding that profit is a byproduct of how well you're able to develop your people. And as HR, yun talaga dapat ang core of what we're supposed to do, diba? It's a sad state that we're not yet there, but if you compare it, they may be more advanced countries when it comes to human resources, ganyan, medyo clear. And I think later on you'll see that this entire conversation that we're having is sort of like a step towards that direction to establish this level of professionalism that we have and the level of understanding that we have of the value of the people that is within our organization. So that's one of the key things that I took away from what Iron Man just said, yung favorite niya. And then I wanted just to chime in dun sa sinabi ni Melanie, although nag-drop off yata siya in the call. I think this ties to what I said earlier about things not changing, diba? And HR being change makers. Not because this is how it was done before, it should be how it's done in the next generation. Us here, 31 of us here, kind of like holds, oh, there it is, sakto, kind of holds a very important role kasi we are we're starting to really step into that role of change makers for ourselves as HR kasi na-experience natin siya, but for the HR community, talaga. So yun yung value ng conversation that we just had, for us to validate that this is not an isolated case. This is something that we all experience and we share. And because it's a shared experience, it's also a shared mission for all of us to kind of like reframe who we are sa harap ng mga empleyado at saka ng mga bosses, or like technically the stakeholders that we have. Okay, so since we've talked about where we are, let's talk about where we should be. What is like the ideal? What's the vision of impact, diba? What's the change that we want to happen? First, because we started with a metaphor where we talked about ourselves as the heart. During the 3-4 sessions that the core team had, we zoned in on something very interesting. Now maybe when you look at the things that we're doing, and if kailangan talaga nating mag-introduce ng metaphor, maybe it's not the heart. It's the spine. Why? Because the spine, if you think about the spine holds all, not just the heart, but all other vital organs ng body natin. So if a company, if the body is a metaphor for the company, then there's various internal organs there. HR should hold them together. And I think I picked this up from kanina. Somebody talked about this already. this vital role of holding things together, particularly in the pandemic, diba? Iron Man said that we are in the perfect place to make ourselves relevant as a role and as individuals, diba? And we're more relevant if ang shift nyo or natin is from just thinking of ourselves as a heart to thinking of ourselves as a spine. Now, no pun intended, diba? When you say that someone has a spine, it means they have paninindigan, they assert themselves, diba? Those are also core competencies that I think, or values that or skills that we should develop. Our ability to assert ourselves, our ability to have a spine, diba? Not just be a yes person. So the metaphor fits more to the vision that we have in terms of who we should be in the organization. Before we move to mindset to, diba? Later on, we'll talk about Wonder Woman will run us through some of the experiences that we want to put in out there to sort of operationalize what being a spine means. We want to ask you guys, what are your thoughts on this metaphor versus a heart to a spine? Do you like it? Do you have any insight around this? Do you want to build on it? Do you want to challenge it? You can write down your ideas in the chat, or you can just say me, and then we'll just call you para we can keep this conversation rolling. I feel like people are warming up na, diba? So what are your thoughts around the idea of shifting our metaphor from being the heart of the organization to being the spine of the organization? Any thoughts there? Hello? Yes. O si Iron Man, nagpalit na siya, nakita ko.
Yeah, kailangan pala mag-log out.
Correct, agree. Oh, I have to change it. Oh, we have the Queen of Atlantis, Mira. Do you wanna unmute and talk about what you just wrote?
Probably I can add something here.
Sige, while we're waiting for Mira, go ahead, Iron Man.
Okay. Kasi HR is more than the heart. We are the spine of the organization. It's quite true to me because yeah, my background is in HR. Though, as mentioned, may mga progressive na organizations na they recognize HR value addition to the organization. So our managing director, the global managing director, actually mentioned that this guy actually not now this is the backbone of the company.
Yeah.
So that's the exact statement. So before it doesn't make sense. Pero as I attend or go deeper to HR, now the HR should be called HRBP or human resources
Business partner, yeah.
Hindi siya separate on different departments na, hey, just go to HR file or whatnot, report or have HR, parang it's a separate island for processing lang of some paperwork. But HR should now take up a role na it is bonding between business units and parang before a business unit conducts operations, they're in consultation with the HRBP and to ensure that the proper processes are set, standards are set, and the people are prepped. So what I'm saying is HR is part of every single operation of the company. Should be part. Since what is basic on all of those departments are people. So now yung HR to ensure na isang department will be functioning and it will be providing value. They should be working aligned and in collaboration with HR. So only in that regard you will get an organization productive, yes, has revenue, but people are finding meaning on what they do.
Yep.
So I believe this statement, I back this statement that the HR is the spine that hold things together, or hold all of these departments together.
Agree. That's a really good insight. Since you started us out now on how to operationalize this, because right now this is in the realm of symbolic meaning, diba? So Iron Man kind of like took us to that place where we're operationalizing it. Let's move to the next slide kasi nandun na tayo eh. And then Wonder Woman, maybe you can run us through some of the top insight that came from that session and then we can build on this. Nakamute ka ulit. Why? Nakapin ka ba kay Metallic Wonder Woman?
Yes po, nakabin po ako.
Oh, but how come you can't see it?
Apo. Why? Sige po, anyway. Tingnan ko na lang siya from my laptop.
Oh, yeah. Do you have it in the in your
Sana wag
the
siyang
shared?
mamatay. Okay. So, being perceived as someone, an HR personnel with a spine or having a backbone, a strong-willed HR personnel. So how are you going to operationalize this spine of the organization or being the spine of the organization? First is we have to define the scope of our HR employee services. So let's veer away from the traditional HR services na yung HR functions that we do in traditional HR facets such as recruitment, timekeeping and payroll, ano pa ba yung tawag natin, comp and ben. Let's make it more strategic, more kumbaga more operational and functional. So ano ba yung mga terminologies natin ngayon? Like, let's make it from recruitment, let's make it talent acquisition, from learning and development, di ba? Talent development, and employee engagement, total rewards and recognition. Kumbaga, para mas maging strategic yung provision natin ng mga HR services natin. Second is define your wow or your ways of working. So from the acronym or from the acronym itself, iwaw natin sila or ipakita natin sa kanila kung being a strong-willed HR practitioner, kung how we operationalize or how we do things in our end, how we communicate and how we deliver results. Kinomit natin at sa mga services na pinoprovide natin. Sa amin sa government, we call it Citizens Charter. And then next, lastly, we have to set the stage by clearly communicating the scope and ways of working to our stakeholder. So, yun nga, we have to know our end of the bargain. Kumbaga, we have to show our worth sa organization para yung value na hinihingi natin as HR, kumbaga, maset natin sa kanila. So, yun po. Any thoughts or insights on how we'll operationalize this stuff?
Baka meron kayong madadagdag apart from these three key things. Iron Man mentioned a couple of things earlier around redefining the roles of HR as HR, like the HR business partner model for HR operations. That's an example of defining the scope. Kasi apart from renaming and setting the tone by renaming your function, which is an example that Wonder Woman gave, another way is really looking at the model. Kung what would be appropriate for the company in terms of what HR is supposed to do. So for instance, for recruitment, diba? How do we add value? How do we become more strategic? What are those? What are the scope of the things that we're supposed to do and we're not supposed to do for our stakeholders? And then the ways of working are really like your culture. Like an organization has a culture, but I think an organization culture is a byproduct of all the combined cultures of the different functional groups and individuals in the company. Your HR should have a culture too. What is that? Diba? Define what that is. Because that dictates what you say yes to or what you say no to. And then over communicate this to our stakeholders. So their expectations are set. Because from the beginning, if you remember the first slide, the impact of the initial framework that we have was it sets the wrong expectation. So being able to do these three things at least allows us to set and manage the expectations that our stakeholders have with us. So apart from this, I wanted to know if you have, number one, does this resonate with you? Is this something that you can do in your organization? Is it something that you're already doing in your organization? Is this new to you, or do you have anything that you can add to this in terms of operationalizing our frameworks? Because we want to hear those so we can add them to our manifesto. Professor X talked about the manifesto earlier. Anyone who wants to share, you can drop notes on the chat. You can just tell them me so we can call you. I agree. Mira said maybe we can reassess the usage of the term employee services to something more strategic and empowering. Yeah, that's good. Let's note that down. Words are very powerful. It sets the tone of how they're gonna interact with us. So yes, let's do that. Let's review. Do you have any recommendations in terms of how to replace this? Any kind of pabaon to the core team in terms of how to reword or call what we do? You can drop them also in the chat. Anybody who wants to share thoughts around what we just shared with you on operationalizing our framework? Anybody? Professor X, do you want to call people?
Sige, hanap tayo. Parang
Yes,
parang raffle, ano?
correct.
Parang may electronic tayo. Okay. Can we call on si Wonder Woman Purple? Can you unmute your mic, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Go
um,
ahead, ma'am. Share your
okay.
insights.
Good evening for everyone, sir. And then, medyo humahabol ako, but ang naabutan ko is yung part na minention ni ma'am earlier, the one presenting, yung tungkol sa how do we operationalize. Ang question ko lang, yung about na-mention na culture, in the organization, meron na kasing nakaset na culture. So, gustuhin ko man sanang mag-share ng bagong maybe be part of the operation, how to operationalize this, yung thoughts natin. Kaso may mga in place na po na parang mahirap tibagin or ano, paano ba? Parte na siya ng like when I arrived, nandiyan na siya, in place na. So parang awkward, para sa akin awkward yung dating para isingit ko pa yung something na gusto ko sanang maging parte doon sa mga processes na nangyayari. Yun lang po. Thank you. Kung meron kayong gustong i-share doon sa situation na in place na lahat, pero meron ka sanang gustong kind of inject or kind of para ba i-add to improve, to better the other processes. Ngunit hindi siya ganun kadali. Okay, yun lang po. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody who have insights on what Wonder Woman Purple just shared? I think this has to do with change management, particularly the cultural. Well, maybe she's talking about process and new things she wants to introduce, but she's coming from a place where the change management has to do with culture change. Have you had some experience around this? The reason why I wanted to talk about this a bit is because whatever we're coming out here is something you would need to introduce to your organization kung hindi pa siya nag-exist. Therefore, all of us, in some way or form, will have to introduce some level of change management. So, is there anyone here who had some experience around this or any thoughts around if you're bringing something new or a change into your organization, like this one, for example, introducing to your stakeholder how they should be working with you? What are examples of that we can give to Wonder Woman Purple so that she can take with her and to think about? Anybody? Cell, naga-unmute ka. Do you wanna share? Oh, Iron Man, mag-share ka nga. Feeling ko you have some insight around this. This is something that you've experienced considering you're talking about progressive companies already. And that's a very common thing in these types of companies, right?
Right, right. Okay. So one mindset na we should have is we sure the seat in the board meeting. Make sure their voices heard during board meetings, even siya mga finance folks, mga sales folks, mga operation folks. So, having said that, yung management is it's really tough. Like, it's one of the toughest thing that you have to do. And hindi siya nag-work unless wala kang buy-in the from your key holders, from your,
Correct.
let's say, CEO. You have to get the buy-in from the CEO. So, how to do it practically, ground down, is currently kasi we can have to revisit our metrics. We
Mm.
should usually, end output ng mga metrics natin sa HR, yung mga what appeals to us. Pero of course, at times, the CEOs, CFOs, it doesn't appeal to them. So
Mm.
once we have a solid analytics framework, what we do, we measure what we do, we constantly improve, we should tie it up with business objectives. Let's say, ang, what about attrition? If you convert attrition into how much a company will be losing if they don't address attrition. Like for example, I know my EBITDA per person. Per department, I would know how much revenue are they putting into the company. Another table is I know also how much cost is allocated in keeping that resource and the cost center and all. Then accordingly, alam mo yung net value ng isang employee.
Mm.
If you're gonna hire X department, I know already that we would be investing 500,000 pesos to your department. So with that kind of thought, it's about money. You get the buy-in of your CEO na, okay, so if I am gonna run this project, hiring 7 people, X resources, I would be investing 500,000 pesos. So what would be the ROI? So if you talk in that kind of wordings or language, na you are understanding the business, and accordingly, your words are having more value. Then down the line, whenever they do X stuff or X project, they're always in consultation with HR.
Correct.
So the summary is to get the buy-in of your CEO, your owner, or whomever you're reporting with, but you have to talk their language.
Agreed.
What is valuable to them? You have to align that to your HR function.
Mm. That's good. There's a lot to unpack there, pero there's three key things that he talked about, and he summed it really well. I was writing down my summary, pero Iron Man did the summary also. But key to this talaga is understanding your decision maker, and then what is important to that decision maker and to the organization, and then making what you're proposing relevant to that direction. This is what strategic HR means. And this is what HR business partnering means. So kung some of us were more attuned with more traditional HR functions, and bago sa inyo yung idea around what does strategic HR mean? It's such a buzzword. How about HR business partnering? Yung describe ni Iron Man na scenario kind of like captures exactly how a strategic HR person works. And it positions what HR business partnering means. Kasi you are everything that you do in HR is relevant to the strategic direction of the organization. Thank you so much, Iron Man. Sa chat, I think we have Ladybug. Can you, yes, I saw you unmute. Can you share your thoughts on this? And then after you, we'll go with Sel.
Yes, po si Michelle.
Si Sel muna. Okay, Sel, are you ready? Okay,
Yeah.
Sel,
Okay.
who's your
Hi,
favorite?
everybody.
Favorite
Groot.
muna. Kasi nakaano ka eh.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time changing my profile. So I'm Groot, the tree man.
Okay.
So anyway, sobrang information, info overload tayo ngayon. Pero I really want to focus on first siguro yung what Wonder Woman mentioned about management difficulty handling difficult managers or people in the top executive, because the HR services can be viewed in two different ways. First, we can view it as an ally, and some in some companies we are viewed as parang what do you call this we are be competitors. So they see us as competitors. So my experience, because medyo I've been in the business for quite some time, my experience would be in handling those very difficult or heads of the department, I would say, would be really to make them feel parang we will be going down to the basics, make them feel what the intentions are. Siguro we have to sit down by ourselves and really explain to them, this is how we're going to go about with what your plans are, and this is how we're going to deal with them. So usap lang talaga ng masinsinan. Let them know that we don't have any, we will be changing their process for, no reasonable, no reasons at all. So yun po yung naging experience ko, and somehow it worked. And it also worked for me. When you present to them what your plans are, make sure that you're prepared, you have a basis, and you carefully plan for it. Kasi minsan, sometimes people take into their own hands some changes, but they really not study it. So it's so sad na mayroong mga ganong scenario. But for us as HR, maybe we should take the initiative to really learn. Kasi tayo naman dito in this field, we are in constant learning and studying. So actually we're not really confined in HR alone. Nag-operations pa nga tayo. And that is something that hindi talaga, we cannot contain ourselves. Talagang minsan it's a must for us to understand the business. So yun lang, siguro ako talaga, what I can share is just go down to the basics, elementary rule lang muna, and then from there we'll move forward.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sel. Ladybug?
Yes po.
Your thoughts, insight, pwedeng from ito, what we're talking about, operationalizing our framework, or jumping off from where Cell or Iron Man came from.
Oo, sobrang napakalaking inputs po ng knowing me coming from a small group or startup, something like that. For changes, it's really parang happening naman if you are baby company, something like that. Kasi diba, pag po nag-start, lagi naman yan, wala pa mga process. And then some of the employees coming from other companies are really used to have the processes. So parang may culture changes lang. Ang sa akin po kasi, ang atake ko po kasi sa mga employees namin, every time may meron akong process sa HR, kasi ngayon lang kami nagkaroon ng local na HR, and 1 month po ako. So if ever, let's say, just the filing of the leaves, dati po kasi, kung gusto mo mag-file na leaves, kung gusto mo mag-file, 1 day before, pwede na. And it's really hard for me, lalo na yung mga nakakalimot na mag-file. So what we did is to have a process for that. We have the policy. So I always make sure na I give the orientation or refresher to our employees for the policy, for the new policy. Also, I open my line to the employees if ever they have questions. And then, pag po may, let's say, syempre yung nakasanayan, medyo mahirap putulin, medyo mahirap siyang baguhin. So, I make sure na if ever si employee, let's say, instead of 3 days, 2 days lang siya nakapag-file, although, let's say, wedding, which is, di ba, planado siya. So, I just make sure na, okay, this is okay for now. Kasi na-approve naman ng manager, pero next time, mas okay kung 3 days. Para maging example din tayo sa iba nating empleyado. Kasi sasabihin kasi ano po kami, parang open communications naman. So I can give advices to employees even if hindi na ako kailangang dumaan ba sa supervisor or sa head. I have the green light for that. And also, it's really important also if you have the personal touch for the employees, so that they will be honest to you and also open with you. Let's say I have this company policy or I have this new process with this specific department. I ask their input before implementing it. Although this is ideal for small group, syempre. Kasi kung bigger group, mostly mga heads lang po talaga yung kinoconsult. Pero if there's a policy, I make it sure na may step by step. And then what is the benefit of the company for this? Not only for the heads, but also when I giving it through memorandum, I put I just put it there what the company
will have for this policy, something like that. Parang, para po maging transparent lang. Kasi pag po pinakita natin naman sa empleyado, yung nakikita nila intention natin na ayaw lang, hindi siya ginawa para maghigpit, hindi siya ginawa para asarin yung ibang employees. Kasi di ba po minsan may mga policies na talaga may nasasagasa ang empleyado. Kaya nagkakaroon ng personala na. Pero if you're going to treat the policy to all the employees and with fair, I think all the employees will follow that process. Even it's, di ba, sobrang bago sa kanila. I think the keyword for that is transparency and giving them the intention to have the parang beneficial siya sa company. Yan lang po.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Well,
BTS, can I also share?
Oh, go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Hindi ko nabasa yung mental telepathy niyo. Normally, nagulat ako. Go ahead, sir.
Hindi, maganda kasi yung discussion eh. So I just want to add value dun sa mga sinabi na, no? So first and foremost, dun sa, I think yung concern ni Wonder Woman Purple is similar to other HR practitioners, ano?
Definitely.
And kung kandado-sarado yung management, ano nga ba gagawin natin? Okay. So what I normally do with my clients, every end of the year, ang suggestion ko sa kanila is to summarize all the pain points that they encountered. Okay. So from the list, the laundry list of the different pain points, I try to point out what is the HR factor there. Okay. So how come we are this specific pain point napabayaan? Ano yung root cause nito? Diba? So we look at the process, we look at the culture, we look at the policies, and then from there we begin to introduce interventions that HR will be championing. Okay, and kadalasan yung mga sablay, yung mga abuses na nangyayari sa organization, not necessarily abuses to HR. It boils down to their lack of support to HR. Either they would not send their HR for a professional development and training, so the HR is not progressing or growing. Okay, or they are not giving additional headcount to HR, so HR can perform the jobs. Like for instance, there is a certain client na both the transactional and the strategic component ibinigay niya kay HR. At the beginning of the fiscal or the business year, I told him, your HR can either flourish on transactional and maiwanan niya yung strategic, or follow you on the strategic direction. Unfortunately, there will be a breakdown on the transactional aspect. You cannot win both because if HR will focus on the transactional side, ubos oras na yan.
Correct.
Okay, so you just have to define what specific role your HR would have, and then you try to outsource the other functions that you're looking at. Hindi nakinig. So at the end of the business year, sabog. Okay, and then when we are reviewing, again, pain points, and then this is my opportunity now to say, see, you cannot marry both, the strategic and the transactional. If you cannot afford to add additional headcount, then just choose the main role, pick the main role of your HR, and then let your HR excel on that aspect. Wag mong gawing halo-halong kalamay. If any of our heroes right now would want to introduce some change, it's a good thing that we are about to end the calendar year, because anytime now, magkakaroon kayo ng business plan. Diba? And a good basis for business plan is data-driven. So the HR should now collect the data, the pain points, and from there, you try to connect the dots. And once you have connected the dots, ano yung HR component sa bawat pain points, and ano yung pwedeng initiatives that HR could champion to address the specific pain point. So in that way, magkakaroon ng paradigm shift din. Itong si top management na sa HR ko, may sense.
Correct.
Okay, because you are taking the initiative to analyze the pain points and offer solutions. Unless we do that, if we will be speaking Greek to them, ang kadalasan kasing problema nating HR, we try to use our HR lingo
Correct.
HR policies and HR procedures to the other managers and top management. So we end up frustrated. Di ba? Anong pakialam nila pagdating doon sa mga linggo natin? Di ba? Yung anong pakialam nila pagdating doon? Why don't we use their lingo to emphasize our point? Like, magpapadala tayo ng performance management forms. Sabihin natin deadline sa ganito, deadline sa ganyan, hindi tayo papansinin. Tapos once na we call their attention, i-insist natin yung policy. Di ba? So, pwedeng isagot sa atin, so, pag hindi ko sinunod yung policy mo, ano ngayon? Di ba? Meron tayong sa code of conduct. So, yung code of conduct, kung i-apply mo sa manager, can we get the support of top management to suspend them? At the end of the day, we end up frustrated. Diba? So, assuming they will not put some action doon sa performance appraisal ng isang proby, tapos nag-lapse, tapos ayaw nilang irregular, that's the best time to tell them, this is the consequence of your inaction. Diba? Now, the company will cost money to terminate this employee. Okay? It's either you pay now and pakiusapan mo yung empleyado mag-resign, or you terminate the employee illegally and then you end up at dole and then you will negotiate for the settlement fee. Then they will listen to you. Bakit? Nakita nila ngayon, may inaction affects the bottom line. It will take away productive time sa manager. It will take away some finances, unnecessary expenses because of such specific inaction. So again, collate the pain points, gather data, connect the dots, and provide countermeasures or solutions or initiatives to the pain points that your organization is encountering. BTS.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I think we have room for one more sharing. Si Wingardium Leviosa, so Harry Potter fan. Hermione, do you have any insight that you want to share with us?
Hello, good evening. So,
Hello.
yon, kasi nag-agree lang ako dun sa sinasabi nila, no? So, sabi ni Professor X, you should speak their language. So, for example, sa case ko, when I joined this yung current organization ko, yung management, sila yung parang tingin nila sa mga tao, sobra talaga parang madaling palitan. Pag meron silang hindi gusto, okay lang na tanggalin, kasi sa kanila, madami naghahanap ng trabaho. Makakahanap tayo lagi ng kapalit. So, problema talaga yung nagiging, is retention. So, when I presented them, yung parang retention programs ko, itinay up ko siya doon sa productivity. Ang ginawa ko, parang nag-ano ko ng data, yung correlation ng tenure saka dun sa sales performance ng mga tao. And based doon sa ilang years ko na data na tinabulate, I found out na yung time to productivity is 2 years. It seems yung turnover namin is sobrang mabilis yung turnover. So yung mga tao hindi tumatagal ng 2 years. So ang nangyayari, affected talaga yung bottom line. So when I explained it to them na ganun yung nangyayari, naging open sila dun sa change, na magkaroon ng, kumbaga naging open sila dun sa mga pinopropose ko na employee retention program. Mas naging open sila dun sa mga trainings. Mas naging open sila na baguhin yung incentive program. Kasi yung incentive program parang 10 taon na yata. Pero yung sa kanila kasi is parang sabi nila, working naman so bakit babaguhin? So parang kailangan lang lahat ng gusto mong i-implement must be supported by data and always correlate doon sa bottom line. Kasi at the end of the day, yun nga sabi nila, di ba, parang tinitreat nila ang HR as expense. Pero kung nakikita mo yung mga pinapakita mo sa kanila na yung ginagawa mo, it will help drive the productivity, it will drive, improve yung benta nyo, and syempre, mas mataas yung profit. At the end of the day, kapag nakita nila na yung ganun yung pinipresent mo, mag-a-agree yan dun sa gusto mong mangyari. So, yun lang.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we move on to the final slide in this segment, Wonder Woman, do you have any insight? Like some key things that you found really interesting sa conversation before we hop into the next one? Nakamute ka ulit.
Ayan. None so far naman po, ang nakita ko lang is yung value ng data sa isang organization para makapag-drive tayo or makapag-ignite tayo ng change na gusto natin. Kasi, yun nga, as much as we want to initiate changes, kung wala namang backing ng evidence-based data or content to support it, wala ding mangyayari. Hindi tayo papansinin ng management. Sa traditional companies kasi, or sa amin sa government, hindi pa kasi kami masyado into that. So,
I see.
we have to transition into a more data-driven mindset para kumbaga mas pakinggan at mas makita ng management yung value ng HR as a strategic partner.
Okay, good. Isiset ko lang kung ano yung entire experience natin from the time we moved to this slide, diba? And then all the conversation that has happened, like everything that we covered from best practices in terms of getting buy-ins, which has to do with speaking their language, relating it to the bottom line, to practices on how to be transparent with the employee base. Kasi Ironman talked about buy-in ng decision makers. Cell talked about how to work to be more transparent with the employee base. Professor X talked about the use of data. We talked about what real strategic HR means, being able to propose things that are relevant to the objective of the organization, what real HR business partnering means, all of these things, and everything that and how we talked about it, the best practice sharing or your actual experience na shinare ninyo, captures our idea of what HR as a spine is. Malayo siya from how we started kanina. Kanina, the setting of the conversation was Professor X gave us all the complaints of HR, everything we were suffering with and suffering in, primarily because puso, diba? Pero if you listen to us clearly, if you were just listening to everyone who was talking, it's not that heartless yung mga sinasabi natin. Pero when you think about it, everything that we've covered is an example of how we become a spine. We marry yung compassion natin for what we're doing to very specific components such as being process-oriented, using data, being strategic. And to me, ito yung tone ng way we should be presenting who we are and what we know. Kasi that's how we gain, that's how we get to manage the expectations of our stakeholders. So example lang to. I'm really excited later on, if you guys are interested to join the HeRo Framework Core team, we'd really love to have you. Kasi just by the depth of the conversation that we have and the kind of sharing that you have, we feel like, okay, they understand how to move away from just being the heart, diba? Into actually being a spine. And being a spine means deducing that concept into operations. How does this apply? How do you operationalize this? How do you make it real, not just a concept? That being said, next slide, please. And this is going to be my final slide before I hand this back to Professor X. How does the community envision using this framework? Our objective is to come up with sort of a manifesto. It's a collective community understanding of what HR is, what Philippine HR is, who we are. So right now, many of you are concerned with your HR roles within your organization. But the HR community that is advocated by Professor X, you know who he is, ganyan. We wanna like, sabi nga nila, dream big, diba? We wanna be able to impact how Philippine HR is. And that starts with setting this manifesto of who we are, writing it down, and making use of it. And ano yung mga possible use case niya? One immediate use case is for those of you who are going to go into your strategic planning, you can use this as a way to set up how you're going to work and your role in 2021 onwards. Second, for those of you who have regular conversations with your management, you can have conversations with them in terms of revisiting your roles, setting up the expectation. So when the manifesto is built and we're all in agreement and this is something that you want to bring to your organization, you can present it to them. And it becomes an initiative from your end na parang, I want to drive this conversation with you and I wanted you to know who I think I should be in this organization because this is how I'm going to be more value adding. In the bigger scheme of things, I feel like right now kasi wala pa tayong identity. Who's a Filipino HR? What is a Filipino HR? I think ako personally, that's where I see this. I really haven't. I'm sure Professor X feels the same way in some of more of our intimate conversations around who he is, who I am, and which organization I'm part of. We're always thinking about what does this mean for a bigger community? In this case, our HR community. And to me, lagi kong problema yun na parang there is no definitive identity of what a Pinoy HR is. And I think we should be able to define what that is for us. And this is kind of like a step to that direction, which is also the reason why I'm drawn to this program. Because that's the use case I have in mind. So I gave you 4 possible use case. There's quite a number of possible use case for this when you see how the manifesto would look like. And at this point, we're still at the beginning stages of defining what the use case is, kasi we went into like more intensive discussion around what is in the manifesto, and yeah, and we're taking some of your insight ngayon sa feedback loop. We're going to fold that back into the current listing that we have and see how we can increase the value of that manifesto, and then get it out there to the world and to you guys as soon as we can. Wonder Woman, do you want to give your your last words maybe before we give this to Professor X?
I'm good na po with what you said.
Okay,
Mandy.
so if you guys are interested in joining the HeRo Framework core team, please email sunny.santos@gmail.com. We need as many insightful people who could join us. I have my eyes set on somebody already, but I don't know who this person is to begin with, so that's not fair. So hopefully mag-email siya kay Sir Sunny and say that he wants to be part of it. Thank you so much. I'm handing this offer to Professor X. If you have any more questions around this, please answer